Canada bows to Jungkook, the first Asian soloist to go platinum. Is the Western music throne finally shaking? Is this just another chart headline, or the first crack in the wall of Western dominance? When Music Canada quietly stamped the word platinum onto Jungkook's solo album Golden, did anyone in the Western industry realize they were witnessing a historic shift? And if Canada, long known as a loyal stronghold of Western pop and rock, has already bowed, who will be next? This is not just a story about numbers. This is not just about certifications, plaques, or sales. This is about power, about perception, about who gets to stand at the center of the global music map, and who is suddenly no longer standing alone there. When Jungkook, a member of the global phenomenon BTS, became the first Asian solo artist in history to earn a platinum album in Canada, the industry didn't just update a chart. It updated its reality. For decades, Canada's platinum certifications were dominated by Western names, American pop giants, British rock legends, and a few Canadian heroes of their own. Asian artists were guests in that space, welcomed, applauded, but rarely crowned. Now one of them has taken the throne alone, and the question that refuses to go away is this: if Jungkook can do this in Canada, what does that mean for the future of Western dominance in music? The story begins quietly, almost too quietly for something this big. Fans noticed first. Accounts like @JungkookCanada_ and BTS Charts Daily began posting screenshots, official-looking graphics, and excited captions. Golden, Jungkook's debut full solo album released in November 2023, had crossed the threshold of 80,000 units sold in Canada, the number required for platinum certification by Music Canada. Not only that, but several of his singles had gone platinum and multi-platinum as well. 7, featuring Lado reached double platinum. Standing Next to You and 3D featuring Jack Harlow went platinum. Even Euphoria, originally released years earlier, had now reached platinum status. At first, it sounded like fan hype. But then the confirmations came. Media outlets began reporting it. Korean and international news picked it up. And then the words that changed everything appeared again and again in headlines. First Asian solo artist, not first K-pop idol, not first BTS member, not first Asian in a group. First Asian soloist. That distinction matters more than many people realize. Groups have often been treated as exceptions in Western markets, seen as phenomena rather than equals. But a soloist stands alone. A soloist competes directly with Taylor Swift, Drake, The Weeknd, Ed Sheeran, Justin Bieber, Harry Styles. There is no group mystique to hide behind, no collective brand to carry the weight. There is only the artist, their voice, their image, their songs, and the audience's choice. And in Canada, that audience chose Jungkook. Why Canada matters is a story of its own. Canada is not just a neighbor of the United States. It is one of the most influential music markets in the world. Canadian charts often mirror or predict American trends. Canadian artists like Drake, Justin Bieber, The Weeknd, Shawn Mendes, and Celine Dion are not just national stars, they are global rulers of pop. For an Asian soloist to break through here is not symbolic, it is strategic. It means playlists, radio rotations, retail systems, and consumer habits all aligned in his favor. So what exactly happened with Golden? Released in November 2023, Golden was Jungkook's first full-length solo album after a series of highly successful singles. It was written, produced, and promoted with clear global ambition. Sung mostly in English, it featured collaborations with major Western artists like Lado and Jack Harlow. But to reduce its success to language choice would be too simple. Plenty of English-language albums fail in Western markets. Golden did not just survive. It dominated on Spotify. It became the most streamed album by an Asian solo artist in history. Tracks like 7 exploded across platforms, topping charts in multiple countries, including the United States and the United Kingdom. But Canada responded with a level of loyalty that surprised even longtime industry watchers. Streams kept climbing long after the initial release window. Sales remained strong. Physical copies moved steadily. Digital downloads did not collapse after the first few weeks, as often happens in the streaming era. And then, almost like a quiet earthquake, the platinum certification arrived. In Canada, platinum means more than just popularity. It means consistency. It means not only did people listen, they bought. They invested. They returned. They did not move on too quickly. That kind of consumer behavior is usually reserved for artists with deep roots in Western culture. How did a Korean artist raised in Busan, trained in Seoul, and famous first through K-pop become that kind of figure in Canada? The answer is uncomfortable for parts of the Western industry, because audiences no longer care about the old borders. For decades, Western pop culture assumed itself to be the center of the world. Music flowed outward from the United States and Europe to the rest of the globe. Other regions consumed, adapted, and sometimes copied. But rarely did they reverse the flow. K-pop and BTS in particular changed that. They did not ask for permission to enter Western markets. They arrived already powerful, already organized, already loved by millions. But even then, many critics insisted that K-pop was a trend, a wave that would crash and fade. They said it was about fandom more than music. They said it was about marketing, not artistry. They said solo careers would not last once group hype faded. Jungkook's Canadian Platinum certification answers those critics. Without speaking, he is no longer riding the wave of BTS alone. He is creating his own current. Media in the United States and Canada have begun to change their tone. Where they once called him a K-pop idol, they now increasingly refer to him as a global pop star. Articles compare his streaming numbers to Western giants. Headlines no longer ask whether he can compete. They ask who he is competing with. And the comparison is not flattering for everyone else. In the same period that Golden went platinum in Canada, several Western soloists with massive promotional budgets failed to achieve similar milestones. Their songs charted briefly, then fell. Their albums debuted high, then disappeared. Meanwhile, Jungkook's work kept moving. This is where the real tension begins, because if Jungkook is not an exception but a sign of what's coming, then the structure of the global music industry is changing. The idea that Western artists automatically dominate Western markets is no longer safe. The idea that Asian artists must first succeed at home before being allowed success abroad is outdated. The audience is global, connected, and impatient with cultural gatekeeping. Social media played a crucial role in this shift. When "Congratulations, Jungkook" trended worldwide, including in Canada and the United States, it was not driven by labels. It was driven by fans. Indonesian army, American army, Canadian army, Brazilian army, they all moved together. This global synchronization is something the old industry model cannot control. But here is the question that makes executives nervous. What happens when fandom power and mainstream acceptance combine? That is what happened in Canada. Jungkook's fans did not just stream. They bought. They requested songs on radio. They attended screenings, events, and pop-up stores. But beyond the fandom, casual listeners stayed. Canadians who did not follow BTS found themselves adding 7 to their playlists. They heard "Standing Next to You" in malls, cafes, gyms, and cars. At some point, Jungkook stopped being that K-pop guy and became simply that singer with that song. That moment, when identity shifts from foreign to familiar, is when cultural power changes hands. Is Western dominance really being challenged? The honest answer is, not destroyed, but no longer secure. Western artists still dominate many charts. They still control major labels, radio networks, and award systems. But the idea that they are untouchable is gone. Jungkook's platinum in Canada is not an isolated miracle. It follows BTS's multi-platinum success in the same country. It follows Asian artists charting higher and longer than ever before in Western markets. It follows a generation that grew up online, where Korean, Spanish, Japanese, and English songs appear side by side in the same playlist. Language is no longer a wall. Geography is no longer a barrier. Identity is no longer a limit. Jungkook represents a new kind of global artist. He is Korean, but not confined to Korea. He is part of BTS, but not dependent on BTS. He collaborates with Western artists without becoming a side character. He stands at the center of his own story, and Canada crowned that story with platinum. What makes this even more symbolic is Jungkook's age. At 28, he is not at the end of a career. He is at the beginning of a long solo journey. Golden is not a farewell, it is an introduction. If his first album already makes history, what will his second do? Or his third? Industry insiders are already watching closely. Labels are studying his marketing. Producers are analyzing his sound. Western artists are noticing his numbers. Some will try to collaborate. Some will try to compete. Some will quietly feel threatened because competition is no longer happening only within the West. It is happening with the world, and Jungkook is not alone. His success opens doors for other Asian artists, not as international acts, but as direct rivals to Western stars. The old narrative of breaking into Western markets is being replaced by something more radical, taking part in them as equals. For fans, especially in Asia, this moment is emotional. It is proof that their voices matter, that their tastes are not secondary, that loving an Asian artist is not choosing the alternative, but choosing the future. And Indonesia, fans celebrated with pride. They saw themselves in Jungkook's victory. Not because he is Indonesian, but because he represents a region long told to watch, not lead. His platinum in Canada feels like a collective achievement for Asian pop culture, and yet, the story is far from over, because history does not change in one moment. It changes through pressure, repetition, and inevitability. Jungkook's platinum is a signal, not a conclusion. It tells us that the door is open. It does not tell us who will walk through next. Will Western artists adapt, collaborate, and compete globally in new ways? Or will some resist, trying to protect an old center that no longer exists? Will Asian artists follow Jungkook's path, or create new ones even more unpredictable? And the biggest question of all, when future generations look back, will they say this was the moment the balance began to shift? When Canada bowed to Jungkook, it did not lose its identity. It gained a new chapter. But for the Western music industry, that bow may feel like the beginning of a long negotiation with a world that no longer waits for permission. So is Western dominance ending? Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but when the first Asian soloist stands in Canada with a platinum album in his hands, smiling in a language that crosses borders, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. The throne is no longer owned by one side of the world, and Jungkook is not asking for a seat. He is already sitting there, and when an artist is already sitting on that throne, even quietly, even without declaring war, the world around him must adjust. The Canadian industry adjusted first. Radio stations that once hesitated to play non-Western soloists began adding Jungkook not as a special request, not as a global segment, but as regular rotation. Retail charts listed Golden beside albums from Drake, Taylor Swift, and The Weeknd without footnotes, without labels like foreign or K-pop. Streaming platforms placed his songs in mainstream pop playlists, not hidden in international categories. The system, slowly but surely, began to treat him not as a guest, but as a resident. And this is where the story becomes more than music, because cultural power has always been tied to visibility. Who is seen? Who is heard? Who is treated as normal? For decades, Western faces filled global screens. Western voices filled global radios. Western stories filled global charts. Others existed, but on the margins. They were world music, Asian pop, Latin tracks, always marked as different. Jungkook's platinum album in Canada is a sign that difference is losing its warning label. He is not being consumed as Korean music. He is being consumed as music. That shift is quiet, but it is dangerous to old hierarchies. Media in the United States noticed this too. Some American outlets began writing not about K-pop breaking barriers, but about Jungkook competing with top Western soloists. That wording matters. It suggests equality, not exception. It suggests rivalry, not novelty, and rivalries make people uncomfortable because rivalries mean someone can lose. Behind closed doors, executives ask questions they would never say out loud. What if the next global superstar is not American? What if the next face of pop is Asian, African, Latin American? What if English is no longer the only language of dominance, but just one option among many? Jungkook's career does not answer all of that yet, but it asks the question loudly enough that it cannot be ignored. Consider what Golden represents. It is not a radical experimental album. It is pop, polished, accessible, emotional, catchy. In other words, it plays by the rules of global pop. And yet, the man singing those rules does not look like the traditional ruler of that world. That is what makes it powerful. He